wrong knowledge creates the problem. It's a wrong knowledge which is the cause of the problems. Not just absence of knowledge, as in deep sleep, but wrong knowledge as in the waking state, dream state. And therefore, Lord Krishna, first of all, has commenced to give the true perception of this reality of life. What's the nature of self and what is the nature of non-self? So, Panditaha. Who are the wise people? Wise people are those who know the self as the self is and the non-self as the non-self is. That's called Pandita or wise people. So Lord Krishna says that wise people do not grieve, meaning that when this wisdom or knowledge is there, grief does not arise. As we said, we do not willfully grieve. Grief takes place. Just as we do not get angry, anger takes place. We do not deliberately become sorrowful, sorrow takes place. Grief takes place. Meaning that we do not have freedom not to grieve. As long as the cause of grief is within ourselves, we have no freedom not to grieve. Therefore, when he said that wise people do not grieve, it only means that they have eliminated the cause of grief, which is this wrong conclusion or understanding or perception about both the self as well as non-self. Therefore, Lord Krishna begins his discourse by giving Arjuna the Upadesha, teaching about the true nature of self and the non-self. So as we saw earlier, in the verse 12, Lord Krishna said that there never was a time when I was not, meaning I always was, meaning that I was never born because I always was. Only thing that is not there is born, but thing that is there is not born because it's there. There never was a time when you were not. There never was a time when all these kings or soldiers or warriors were not. Meaning that all of us always were. Meaning that none of us is born. Nachaivan bhavishyamaha, and there will not be a time when we will not be, we will always be there. Meaning that we do not die. So Lord Krishna said, what is the nature of Atma, the self? When you say that you are never born, you never die. Now that quite contradicts our own experience, is it not so? That we know that we were born and that a day will come when we will die. On the face of that, Lord Krishna says, you were never born and you will never die. That means Lord Krishna's perception of what we or you are and what our perception of who we are is different, because we think that we were born and we are going to die. Lord Krishna says, you were not born and you will never die. So that Lord Krishna's perception of the At Self is different from our perception of the Self. Because we are mixing up the Self with the non-Self. The body is a non-Self and the body is subject to birth as well as death. Lord Krishna says, Atma is not born, Atma does not die. Meaning the body is not the self. You follow? That's what it means. When I say that I was born, Lord Krishna says, you were not born. I say I'm going to die, Lord Krishna says you will not die. That means the way I look at myself is different from the way Lord Krishna looks at me. So that in me, which is not subject to birth and death, is the true nature of myself. There is something in me which is subject to birth and death, but at the same time there is also something in me that is neither born nor will die. So Lord Krishna says that is the true nature of yourself. So here Lord Krishna gave us what we call the viveka, the discrimination, separation between the self and non-self, meaning that which is subject to birth and death is not yourself. It is what we call non-self. And who are you? You are Nitya, eternal, without birth and death, without beginning and end. So this knowledge will eliminate the cause of grief. How? What is the cause of grief for Arjuna or for anybody? Is that his near and dear ones, namely Bhishma, Drona and others will die. So death is the cause of grief for Arjuna and for anybody. Lord Krishna says, Bhishma and Drona, they will neither born, they will never die, meaning that there is no death for Bhishma and Drona, and therefore there is no cause for grief. It is not Bhishma and Drona that cause the grief, it is my notion of who Bhishma and Drona is that causes grief, understand? So Vedanta explains that it's not the world that causes grief to me. It is my perception that causes grief to me. I look upon Bhishma, Drona, meaning that my near and dear one says his bodies, and therefore the birth of body was birth of Bhishma, death of body is death of Bhishma. This is my perception. And if that is so, then definitely we can understand that death of Bhishma will cause grief. Because he's dying, he will be no more there. But Lord Krishna says, no, Bhishma is eternal, Drona is eternal, you and I. Lord Krishna, I am eternal. Arjuna, you are eternal. And Bhishma, Drona, everybody is eternal, meaning that there is no death. So if death is the cause of grief, then there is no reason to grieve because there is no death. So Lord Krishna is giving various reasons why there should not be grief in the life. So Lord Krishna, how do you say that Atma is Nitya or eternal? Eternal is that which does not change. That which changes is perishable. Understand, is that which changes will slowly decline and perish. Even if it is growing, what grows will someday decline also. So anything that is changing is perishable. And we see Bhishma was, was a young man and then he became a middle-aged man, now he is an old man. There are changes. I know that I was a child and I was a youth and I'm an old man, though I also change. So what changes is perishable. So how do you say, O Lord, that I am imperishable? When I'm constantly changing from childhood to the youth and to the middle age and to the old age, etc., then how do you say that I am changeless? So Lord Krishna again continues in a very beautiful way, shows the distinction between the self and the non-self. So in the 13th verse, Lord Krishna said, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. Dehe kaumaram, Dehe Yavanam, Dehe Jara. Kaumaram, childhood. Yavanam, youthfulness. Jara, old age. All of these are there. But where are they? Dehe, they are in the body. Then who is the self? Dehi. So in this verse number 13, Lord Krishna uses two words, Dehi and Deha. Dehinaha is simply the sixth case of the word Dehin. Who is Dehin? The one who possesses the body. So understand, Arjuna, that here there is the body and there is a possessor of the body. And possessor is always different from what he possesses. So the Dehi, the possessor, owner, indweller, the self, and he possesses his body, which is his possession. So changes do take place, but where do they take place? Kaumaram, Yauvanam, Jara, the childhood, the death, old age, all of these do take place where? In Dehi, Deha, in the body. How do you say that these changes only take place in the body and not in the possessor of the body? How do you say that? Because Lord Krishna says, look, there is one entity that is continuously there. Whereas in the body, there is no continuity. In the sense that the child is no more there when the youth comes. When the youth comes, then the youth is no more there when the middle age comes. And there is no more there when the old age comes. The old comes. Meaning that when the body becomes youthful, the child body is gone. When the body becomes middle-aged, then the youthful body is gone. Is it not so? They don't exist. We would wish that child also coexisted, doesn't exist. Childhood dies, fortunately or unfortunately, and the youth is born. The youth dies, the middle age is born. That dies, the old age is born. Is it not so? Because one cannot be unless the other is gone. That's the thing. A flower cannot be unless the bud is gone. The fruit cannot be unless the flower is gone. The previous state has to die for the new state to emerge. Is it not so, to arise? Meaning that the process of birth and death is constantly taking place in this body. In fact, now we know much more how blood changes in X number of days. I mean, so many weeks of blood, 3 months of blood changes. Even bones change. Everything changes. Nothing is ever the same. The cells keep on being born and dying constantly. It is a delusion or a Brahman or a part to believe that this body is the same. Really, it's not. Even scientifically, it is not the same. Technically, philosophically, it is not the same because, as I say, the old one died and the youth was born. So, constantly death and birth are taking place in the body. But while this is taking place, there is somebody or something that is not born or does not die. Who is that? There is a witness of this birth and death. There is a witness. Who is that? I. Who knows I was a child because I remember my childhood and all kinds of stuff that I did when I was a child. Which sometimes I don't like to remember, but that's, it's there. All kinds of things that I did, as a youth. Prodaham, Yauvanastaha, Vishaya Vishadharahi, Panchabi, Marmasando, Nashto Vivekaha. Shankaracharya said, I became youthful. Then all of a sudden the hormones arose and all these objects are all impact upon me and I was lost in them. Now an old man, I thought that now I have all the time to worship God. No, Lord, my mind is just not with me. It constantly worries about the future and is all the hurts and guilts of the past and worries about the future and concern about the present and where is it? So there is someone who is aware of the childhood, aware of the youth, and aware of the old age in the same someone, because I who was a child was I who was a youth, is I who is old age. It is not that the I has changed. Is it not so? If the I changes, then you cannot remember. See, for remembrance, it is necessary that we should have had the experience of what we remember. A memory must be preceded by experience. And my memory requires my experience, not your experience. Meaning that I cannot remember your experience. Ya smriti sa anubhava purvika, say that the smriti of the memory presupposes an experience. So I remember my childhood, that means I was the one who experienced the childhood. I remember my youth, means I was the one, same I who experienced the youth, the same I who experienced the middle age, same I who is now experiencing the old age. So in all these process of birth and death of the child, birth of the youth, death of the youth, birth of the old, in all these process of death and birth, there is someone who does not die, and because the witness cannot, this is witness of death should not die, understand? One interesting thing. We cannot be witness of our own birth, and we cannot be witness of our own death. You follow? For me to be witness of my birth, I should be present before the birth to note that birth has taken place. To note the time of birth, I should be present before the birth. I cannot be the witness of my birth, nor can I be the witness of my death, because for being witness of death, I should be present after the death. You know, I know when the death took place. Our Swami used to ask us, when we were studying, he said, tomorrow please tell me when you went to sleep. When did you go? 11 o'clock. Are you sure? Did you note the time? Approximately, yeah. Because when the sleep takes place, I am not around. I cannot be the witness of my own sleep, is it not so? Otherwise, if I am witness, then I am not sleeping. So I cannot be witness of my birth, nor can I be the witness of my death. Meaning the one who is witness of the birth and death is the one who is not subject to birth and death, otherwise he cannot be witness. So in this body, when the process of the death and birth is constantly taking place, I am the witness because I remember, I know the child, I know the youth, I know the old age. It's called pratyavijna. I recognize I who am now talking to my grandchildren was I who was talking to my grandfather, So this is called pratyavijna, recognizing. See, remembering is one thing, recognizing is somewhat different. Little more than, so perception is one thing, recognition is little more than that. To perceive you is one thing. To recognize that you are so and so requires memory. Perception and memory, when both of them combine and recognition takes place, you see. I saw you last night. So then same you who I saw last night, the same you who I am seeing this morning, then I recognize the same you. That's called recognition. Cognition is one thing, recognition. Cognition is perception. Recognition is to recognize that which I perceived in the past is the same entity that I am perceiving today. Similarly, there is recognition about myself. I who was a witness of the childhood is I who is a witness of the old age. You see, because same I is recognized, is not so? It's called recognition. Recognition presupposes continuity. If you are the person whom I saw last night, and same person I am seeing this morning, means that there is a continuity in you who was there last night and who is there this morning. So when I say that I who was a child is the same I who is the old person, that shows that there is continuity of I when there is recognition. In cognition, the idea of continuity is not there. In recognition, there is continuity. Understand this. For Vedanta, this recognition in Sanskrit is called pratyabhijna. Just for information, pratyabhijna means recognition. Is a very important thing because there is continuity. And particularly, arguing against the Buddhas who say that the Atma is kshanika vijnanam, momentary consciousness. Every moment the consciousness or Atma arises and perishes, arises and perishes, they say. Meaning Atma is never the same. Then we say, how can I remember what was in the past? I who was in the past is the I who is in the present. So this recognition is presented as an argument against the kshanikatvam or momentariness of the Atma. Just for your information, for some of those who are familiar with this. Thus Lord Krishna said in this verse that the self continues, changeless, in and through the changes taking place in the body. But then, oh Lord, how about the next birth? See, you say that recognition is the proof of continuity. I don't recognize that I was one who was in that body, is I who is in this body. Most of us don't. There may be some people who may. Most of us don't. So Lord Krishna, tatha dehantarap, similarly also attainment of another body. Because understand, you are already attaining bodies. Even when you are in this lifespan itself, you attained so many bodies that you first had the body of the childhood that was given up, and you attained the body of the youth. That was given up, and you attained the body of the old man or person, and that will be given up, you will attain the next body. Meaning that giving up one body and attaining another body is taking place even in this birth. It can take place next birth also. Meaning that the death and birth of the body are not the death and birth of witness. Atma ever remains a witness. And they try to present some kind of evidence that there was past birth. Whether you accept it or not is a different matter. We pointed out last time. They say that, look, when a child is born, immediately the child reaches out for food. Reaches out for, the mother's breast. No, nobody has taught the child. You can perform an action based on your memory, provided you have an experience, but the infant has no experience at all. And somehow it seems to know where the food is. That shows this is the remains of the past birth. That's presented as a feeble evidence of, the past birth. Some people may dismiss it, but this is one thing. We see it in all the little infants that are born and other animals also, that they seem to know how to survive, how to protect themselves. You see fear in them, you see also happiness in them. No, they have no experience so far in this life, in this just born child, for fear, and still they have it. That shows that this is a tendency that is continued from the past births. Anyway, Vedanta would say that if the next birth, if there is no continuity life, then there will be no order at all, because what all I did in this life, I am accountable for that, and if I do not exhaust the out results, I have to be born again to continue, etc. So, but that is not the point here. The point is that the body is that which is constantly changing, it is constantly dying and being born, whereas the witness, which is Atma, is changeless. So here Atma, Anatma, the discrimination between the self and non-self is pointed out, how Atma is Nitya, how Atma is imperishable. And therefore it does not deserve to be grieved for. Yes, granted, O Lord, the Atma, the self, is eternal, changeless, and therefore the death of the self should not cause grief, because self doesn't have death. I understand. At least I understand intellectually. When it comes to real life, I forget, then we need some other kind of a training. That will come later. They need a certain kind of a mind, which is alert mind, which is constantly aware of this knowledge. That's the one that can put into practice. So that will come later. Right now, understanding. And if your heart is pure, then the implementation also comes right away. So I understand that Atma, or the self, is free from birth and death, is changeless, and therefore, true, the self will not die, and therefore the self does not deserve to be grieved for. I understand. But then what about all these pleasant and unpleasant experiences in life? They can cause grief, is it not so? Shitoshna Sukhuduka Prapta Nimitto Moha. We are constantly confronted with different situations which can be classified as favorable or unfavorable. We have to confront, this is what life is. As long as we are living, we cannot escape this reality of life. That what we are confronting, what we are experiencing constantly changes. That what we experience is not constant. It changes, and therefore now it is pleasant, then it is unpleasant. Now desirable, undesirable, favorable, unfavorable, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, mana, apamana, honor, dishonor, success, failure, gain, loss. The life constantly presents these situations before us, and also like a wheel, which is never the same, no situation ever remains the same. As the wheel goes up and down, nichar gacchati, uparicha dasha, chakranamik, like a ream of the wheel goes down and up. Similarly also, the situations in the life keep on going up and down. The ups and downs of the life, that's what they say. Will not that cause grief, Swami, Lord? That when unpleasantness comes, when unhappiness comes, when somebody insults me, when I lose someone dear to me, when there is a loss, when there is a failure, when I suffer an insult or humiliation, would not that cause grief? That would cause grief, is it not so? Understand that the death is not the only cause of grief in our life. That's a huge cause, of course. But even if for the moment we settle account with death, That is, there is no death and therefore there should not be grief. But what about these constantly changing situations which cause pleasure and pain constantly? And there are three kinds of situations: Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidaivika. Meaning that my own body becomes the source of the pleasure and pain. The world around me becomes the source of pleasure and pain. And as though there is not enough, even the divine forces, all the natural forces also become the cause of the pleasure. And the fire took place, 58 people died in fire, imagine. That gets news every day and every day and every day, and at the same time 87 people died somewhere in Indonesia in forest fire. Will get one little attention, Anyway, that's a different thing. The only countries that exist in the world are France and England, some European countries, and America and Canada. Nothing else exists in the world. Those fellows, the Iraqis, say, hey, you are talking about some 12 people died in France and you keep on, the whole world is, that they should, of course, grieving. But here every day people are dying, scores of them are dying, and there's no attention at all. Nobody cares for it. Nobody even mentions us. That all the countries, they lower their, the flag and all kinds of, they're wearing all kinds of black things, So if some people, 12 people died in France, that deserves so much of attention and grief, then what about things happening in Syria and Iraq and this and that and Pakistan, everywhere, India, everywhere people are dying like, nothing. Anyway, so that is not death. That is all mosquitoes dying, I guess, That's all moths being born and dying. These are human beings here. But anyway, still, all of these would cause grief. So life presents with us all kinds of situations. And even if you settle account with death, let us say, that Atma does not die, but the fact remains that Atma is constantly subject to the changing situation. Sometimes I am insulted, sometimes I am honored, sometimes I am successful, sometimes I fail, sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. What about that? And not only failure causes grief, but in success also the potential of grief is there. Because I savor or enjoy the success for a moment, and then immediately comes the question of how to retain that success. No sooner this person becomes the President of the United States, that's a great thing, a great achievement, a great joy. But the next concern is how to get re-elected. So you have to start. And what you do is not decided by what is best for the country or the world. It is only decided by how to get re-elected, that's all. Meaning that success also causes stress. By imposing upon me the demand that I must remain successful, otherwise they'll say, what happened to you? In last year you scored one first rank and now you are third rank. What is this? So in life, both of these cause stresses. Failure definitely the cause of grief. So does these pairs of opposites keep on coming to us? Will they not cause grief? Then what should we do? So in the next verse, Lord Krishna talks about the grief arising from this day-to-day experiences. So let us see the next verse, verse number 14 rather. So we find the grief arising in people not only on account of death. We find people grieving for little reasons. I get upset just because of the way you look at me. That's enough to make me upset. What do you want? So I said, hurry up, and he didn't reply. He may be in his own mood, who knows? As Swamiji says, he looks at me. He was trying to prevent a sneeze. So there was some kind of contortion in his face, and I interpret that as something, done to me. So our mind being what it is, it has an uncanny knack of interpreting everything to create, make it a cause of grief. So what about that? To that, Lord Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya Shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha Agama payano nityaha Tam stitikshasva bharata. Hey Kaunteya and hey Bharata. Sometimes Lord Krishna, out of total affection, from Arjuna, addresses two names. In one verse, Arjuna is addressed Kaunteya and Bharata. Hey Kaunteya, Matra sparshastu shitoshna sukha dukkhada. Lord Krishna uses an unusual word, expression here, Matra sparsha. We are not familiar with those things. Or we have a conventional meaning of matra, means a certain measure. But here, that by which things are measured are called. So, ma means to measure. So, miyante abhiti matraha, that by which something is measured. In this case, something is perceived. What are they? The sense organs of perception. See, we have 5 organs of perception with which we perceive the 5-fold objects of the world. With the organ of hearing, we perceive the sound. With the organ of touch, we perceive the touch. With eyes, perceive the color, etc., etc. So these 5 organs of perception are called matraha, because by them we perceive the sense objects. And sparshaha, sparsha means what? Touch. So matranam sparshaha, one way of resolving again this samasa is matranam sparshaha. So those which are touched by the sense organs, meaning what? The sense objects. So, Arjuna, the point is that whenever your sense organs will interact with the sense objects, some experience happens. That's called an experience. What is an experience? That my organs of perception, they interact with the corresponding object of the world. For example, right now, your organ of hearing is interacting or coming in contact with these words, and that is how an experience happens. Experience of hearing happens. Similarly, my skin may touch something, eyes will see some color or form, the palate will taste something, the nose will smell something. There are 5-fold objects of the world, and for perceiving or experiencing them, we have the 5 corresponding organs of perception. So this is life. That's called waking state, when I interact with those objects of the world with my sense organs. What happens is, every experience produces also a reaction. An experience now is branded by me. Shita and Ushna, cold and hot. So some experience I call cold, and something else I call hot. This cold and hot, etc. are also subject, because what may be cold may not be cold to an Eskimo. Or what may be hot for him may not be hot for somebody coming from Ahmedabad, So this is all relative. So sometimes people sitting in the hall also keep on doing this. They are very uncomfortable. I don't know why. I feel cold sometimes and they feel hot. So it's all relative. But in short, we will have an experience will be branded by us. The point is, experiences take place constantly. Whenever our organs of perception, sense organs, come in contact with sense objects, that contact is called an experience, which experience always also judged by us or branded by us. That's the thing. All right, you call it heat and this is too hot or cold. Okay. But then further, that further produces in me a reaction. So when I brand an experience, it produces reaction in me. The heat and cold is all right. I further judge them as what? Favorable and unfavorable. So every experience is judged by me either as favorable or unfavorable. It is the nature of my mind to judge. There may be some experience through which I am indifferent. It can be. But usually, we brand a situation as likable or dislikable, favorable, unfavorable. Gain is favorable, loss, unfavorable, success, favorable, failure, unfavorable, honor, favorable, dishonor, unfavorable. Heat may be favorable or unfavorable, depends. The cold, favorable, unfavorable. In a given situation, heat may be favorable. In some other situation, may be unfavorable. But favorable and unfavorable is definitely my conclusion about every experience. That is important. Favorable, unfavorable. Likeable, dislikable. You know why? Because that has become the habit of my mind. Why do I do that? Because I possess what we call raga and dvesha. Lord Krishna will say in the 3rd chapter, Indriyasya indriyasyate raga dvesho vyavasthitau. Here, Arjuna, the raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion, like and dislike, are vyavasthitau. They exist with reference to every sense organ and object. Meaning that my organ of hearing has things that it likes to hear and things that it does not like to hear. My eyes like to see certain colors and forms and does not like certain colors and forms. My palate enjoys certain tastes and simply does not like some other tastes. And my organ of smell enjoys certain aromas and hates some others. Although what I may hate is what you may love, and what you may love is a different thing. The fact that it has become my tendency, because of my likes and dislikes embedded in my mind, become my tendency to brand everything as likable or dislikable, favorable, unfavorable. I like it, I do not like it. I want it, I do not want it. And then further reaction. What is the further reaction? I'm happy, I'm unhappy. If my judgment is the situation is favorable, automatically causes reaction, I'm happy. So understand, happiness also happens. I don't will to be happy, you know. Happiness happens. I do not will to be unhappy. Unhappiness happens. So happiness and sorrow also happen. Because both are reactions, not actions. An action is that in which I have the freedom. A reaction is that in which I don't have freedom. It happens. I find myself happy. Is it not so? Hey, you come this morning. I find myself happy. He has come unhappy. Depending upon how I brand my experience. Seeing somebody, I'm so happy. seeing somebody else, I'm unhappy. I may or may not express it. That's a different thing. So see how the sequence is. Number one, experiences in life are unavoidable because that is called life, where we constantly relate to the world. And we relate to the world with our sense organs as well as the mind, of course. Lord Krishna does not include the mind, but mind also we contact the world with our sense organs, the objects, and people we contact with our mind, emotions also. So we gain experiences through sense organs, we gain experiences through emotions, we gain experiences through our intellect, we gain experience through our ego. At all levels, experiences take place unavoidable. That's called life, which is called living. And what is living is relating. Relating means experiences constantly happen. Now, it is the habit of my mind to brand every experience. How do I brand them? As favorable or unfavorable, desirable or undesirable. It is possible that what I call favorable today, the very same thing I may call unfavorable tomorrow, is a different matter. Meaning that my fanciful mind keeps on changing its opinions, and therefore what is likable now may become dislikable later. But the fact remains that in every situation, whether favorable or unfavorable, that judgment will be there. There may not be consistency in what is favorable or unfavorable, but then that every experience creates in me this judgment or branding that this is favorable or unfavorable, likable, dislikable, that is constant. You follow? What I experience changes, and the reason for branding also may change. But that I brand and my conclusion is I like it, I dislike it, is constant with reference to all experiences. And moment I brand something as likable or favorable, I react with happiness. And moment I brand something unfavorable, dislikable, I react with unhappiness. That's good, Swamiji. Happiness is good. What's wrong with that? As I just said, as our Swamiji says, dukkham, 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 sukham, dukkham, 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 dukkham. Unfortunately, there is predominance of dukkha or sorrow, and happiness comes in between. But even if it comes, even let us say that there is 50-50 happiness, statistically, then also what I call unhappiness has a happiness has a potential of unhappiness, because I will always work myself towards failure. You right now, suppose you treat me with, you respect me, show your respect to me in a certain way. When I enter your home, Swamiji, welcome, I feel good. 2-3 times welcome, then I say, that's okay, then what more? Then I want something more, Welcome, and then you touch my feet. That's better. I get used to that. Next time I want you to wash my feet, you follow? So what is meant by being respected, so what is meant by respect also keeps changing, meaning that I myself set myself up to a point where I will be disappointed by anything. So basically there is only dukkham. Even though sukha is there supposedly, but that is only nothing but a preparation for dukkham. Because if something can make me happy, that same thing can make me unhappy. If something can make me happy, then I am empowering it to make me unhappy by conducting itself in a different way, that's all. So today you smile at me and therefore I am happy. Today you may not smile at me for your own reasons and I become unhappy. So basically there is nothing but sorrow. Understand that in our life, unfortunately. So Lord Krishna, we are constantly gaining experiences at all the different levels. And experiences are either favorable, unfavorable, and therefore they automatically create the reaction of sorrow. How can I avoid that sorrow? That will be there. You say, Panditaha nano shuchandi, wise people never grieve, but wise people also have to confront all this, do they not? Just because you're wise, so what? You can be insulted, humiliated, you can be heckled also. A prime minister can be heckled. What is the question of you and I and so, you know? That poor Prime Minister of England, you know, it must be a very unfortunate woman. That such a fire should take place. It's not her doing anyway. But then she failed to do something, you know. She met this fellow and did not meet this. That is enough. So you never know what will create misery, what will create. You just don't know. Unpredictable. So there's always a stress. What will happen? So, how do the wise people avoid? How to avoid this sorrow? So tentatively Lord Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna dukkhadaha. Whenever the sense organs come in contact with the sense objects, meaning that whenever you come in contact with the world presents variety of situations before you, and therefore your reaction will be either happiness or unhappiness. Both of these are manifestations of sorrow, understand? Unhappiness is sorrow in a straight way. Unhappiness is sorrow only in a hidden way. So our reaction is sorrow, understand? Happiness is not, as I react with happiness. Happiness happens, there is no free will. Therefore, our reaction of happiness and both of them fall in the category of sorrow. So Lord Krishna says, all right, gives us a pragmatic way of doing things. Agama apayana anityaha. Lord Krishna says, agama apayana. Agama, that which comes. Apaya means that which goes. Apaya means destruction. Agama, creation. Apaya, destruction. Meaning that every experience is born and every experience perishes. Is it not so? An experience has a duration. Any experience has a duration. Thus, every experience has a beginning and that very same experience also has an end. Beginning is called agama, end is called apaya. So one characteristic of all these experiences is what? Agama payanaha. They are subject to coming and going. Means so anityaha. They are all impermanent. They are all transient. So remember this. That they're not permanent, Arjuna. The discomfort comes, understand that what comes will go. And therefore don't keep on complaining about it. Always complaining. Even good things also be complained. Like this husband, every day complain for his wife. Today you have put too much salt. Every day complaining about the food. And one day it happened that she had cooked so well and that he enjoyed the food. Then also he got upset. How come you don't cook this like every day? So this is our nature. Complaining. We find some way of complaining. Husband is an example, The point is that this man comes home and his wife starts the day's, lecture. There's no moment he is free, She starts telling all kinds of things she had to go through the whole day. He said, let me relax for a while. He said, but I also want to relax, So So that is her way of relaxing. But the point is, so Lord Krishna says, remember that every experience has a beginning and an end, is fleeting, is impermanent, and therefore don't give it any importance. Let it come and go. Tam stitikshasva bharata. You put up with them, you forbear with them, you bear with them. Titiksha means what? Forbearance. To bear something. Heat, put up with it. Cold, put up with it. Honor, put up with it. Dishonor, put up with it. How do you put up with it? It has come, it will go. You know, this shall also pass. Everybody knows that story, isn't it? That when mother was dying, the child was young. And the mother told the child, look, I'm giving this locket, always wear it. When you are in such a difficult situation that there is no way out, then you open it. Okay, the child forgot about it, was wearing. He then grew up and became a young man and then had some problems in his married life and business, and then was so frustrated. And there was no hope in his life. He decided to commit suicide. And you go to one of those bridges on the river and that's what you want to do. He was ready to plunge into the water. And then he remembered what his mother had told many years ago. That when you are in a situation when there is no way out, open this locket. So let me open before I plunge into water. My mother told me to do that, let me do that. Open that locket. There was a crumpled piece of paper in which a few words were written. This shall also pass. Oh, this shall also pass? The miserable situation which I am right now, which is prompting me to do this, will also pass. He got enlightened. He decided, this also will pass. So that's what Lord Krishna, Agama Payana Anityaha. Arjuna, nothing is permanent. No pleasure or pain or no sorrow is permanent. It comes and goes, and therefore put up with it. Let it come and go. You do not react. What is meant by titiksha or forbearance is that may you remain free from reaction. That is called putting up with it. Complaining means I am reacting. Tam titikshasva bharata. Hey Bharata, may you titikshasva. May you put up with them. May you bear with them. So here we'll take a break for a short time and we'll continue our discussion in the next session.